All right, wonderful. We can dive in. Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are here today with TC Smith, and we're going to have this really awesome conversation. I am super looking forward to, but I just want to welcome you, TC. Thank you for making time to hop in this evening and provide some value to our community.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really love this topic. I really love talking about, especially just like any angle from health and fitness. But when it comes to the mindset, I think it's just like a bigger topic that doesn't really get talked about a lot. So I'm really happy to shed light on it.
Yeah. No, I'm super happy too. I think a lot of people think that they forget about the mindset piece and think that they just need to like power through everything. And I think that's where a lot of that black and white thinking and the I'll start over Monday thinking really comes from instead of addressing, like maybe there's a discrepancy in what you think needs to happen between what can actually happen. And that goes back to mindset.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. How did you get into the coaching space, TC?
The coaching space itself, um, I've always wanted to help from like a long time ago. I just because I had a background in track and field when I came when I was coming up in high school. Then I went to college and I had these big Olympic dreams, and I that's where like the basis of my foundation from like training and running and the biomechanics of running and the biomechanics of training and hypertrophy training like all started and rooted in from a very early age. But then like there's this thing that happens to athletes. I don't know, were you athlete in college or high school?
No, I didn't find the athlete space till I was like 30.
Okay, so I mean, I think we all experience it some way, but especially around like high school, or college, if you were an athlete, then you were just showing up to practice because you were told to go to practice, and you had all this activity, you had all these workouts that were all programmed for you. And then after college or after high school, like when your career ends, you kind of end up in this weird limbo state of like, who the hell am I? Like, what am I? And you don't really know what to do. So some people just keep showing up. And I was in that bucket. I just kept showing up without any plan or like really knowing what to do. You I guess I'll just keep doing this. But it was around like that time frame when I really like leaned into finding out like what I'm supposed to do on Earth. And I had this big vision one day of like, I saw some YouTube video of some people getting inspired by some other people that made a transformation. I'm like, oh wow, like that's awesome. Like they are helping people just doing their passion. And then that was the first glimpse of like me seeing the opportunity of me being able to help somebody because it was so impactful for me. And I thought like if I could just give that to other people, I think that would be like a life worth living, so fulfilling. And that's kind of where it all started. This happened like maybe, I don't know how 2013, I think it was like the year like it all kind of like dawned on me. And like ever since I had that vision, I just committed and I just went all in just because I had like a long road to like figure all this stuff out, right? Like I got to like learn about like all the modalities and different training styles, different nutrition didn't come to like, maybe 7 years later after that. So that's how like I started my journey, at least from like, just working out for myself. And I think that's kind of like a big thing to like even address. I'll probably talk about it later, but I think the big thing that most people have the biggest successes in terms of making like an actual transformation is when something comes in the picture that's bigger than themselves, whether that is for business, that is for family or their kids or their grandkids, or if maybe like you or me, like if we have like other visions to like help other people, like then like figure and why you do things are rooted. It's not for you anymore. It's for like your obligations to other people to help and inspire. And either if you want to like make a better example for them, or if you want to make a better example for your team, if you're in business, you just want to be around longer for your kids and grandkids. I think that's where you stop letting yourself down. You can't imagine letting other people down. That's been like a big anchor for me because I like to help people.
Right. Yeah, no, that, identifying what your goal is, I think is super important. And then, like you said, those external motivators, I think, really play a big role too. Um, but I think that sometimes people can struggle with, you know, there's going to be a period where the external motivator maybe is not so motivating, and then you have to rely on the intrinsic motivators. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. Is that what you see?
Yeah, give me an example of what you mean by intrinsic and extrinsic motivators.
Yeah, so extrinsic would be like those things that you're talking about, like you're doing it for a family member or a loved one, or there's a health condition, or maybe, an outside thing like, oh my God, I can't keep my job if I can't do X, Y, Z. But at some point, maybe those motivators kind of die off, or you become accustomed to them, or you work through that particular challenge, and then what you have to rely on is what's inside the intrinsic motivators. So your
Oh, I see.
dedication, your routines, your consistency. And I think that's where people struggle, because they're looking for that motivation, but they're not understanding that, yes, the ones outside are going to get us started, but what's going to keep us going? And that comes from inside.
So what comes to mind when you say this is I really get taken back by some of these deeper whys that people have. And a lot of the times people don't realize their why. Because
Right.
most of the time when people come into, if they come to you, if they come, like I have clients that come to me, um, like, hey, I want to lose like 30 pounds. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, why do you want to lose 30 pounds? And they're like, oh, I don't know. But that's the weight I feel better in. That's the weight I was when I felt my best in. Yes, I want to. And like, all right, why do you want to feel good again? Like, what's like what's underneath that? And then they start thinking about like things they never thought before. Like, well, I want to feel good because I remember that was a time when my life was like flourishing. I'm like, well, why do you want your life to flourish? And then they start like peeling these layers back of understanding what is the reason behind it. And normally it's stemming from never been able to, this is deep, right? Like they've never been able to live the life on their terms. It's always been like let's say it was a stay-at-home mom that she's always just giving and giving and giving to herself. She's never been able to like give herself anything. And now it's her time for her to pour into herself so she can give more. Or another could be maybe that wants to stick to, like I understand like there's like a lot of fat shaming that goes around, especially with like women who are overweight, and shopping is like a big thing, and like having to go to the back and deal with like plus size clothing, and then like all the models and all the mannequins are all like like the tiny and petite, and like them like seeing that like they want to stick it to like that infrastructure that exists there to like let them feel what it's like to be or to take something on that they never thought they were capable of in the beginning. Or maybe they just want to like live longer for their kids, or maybe they just want to like be an inspiration to their brother, or they want to be an inspiration to their family, or maybe they just don't want to like succumb to the same diseases that run in their family. So there's a lot of these deeper reasons that go that are way beyond these surface levels ideas that we as coaches hear all the time. Like example is, a lot of people will proudly like, I don't want, it's still deep to like even go there, but they don't like, people don't want to take the shirt off at the pool. They feel subconscious at the, and cool, that is motivating, that is a factor. But I strongly believe if you just stop there and just take that motivation to pursue your fitness journey, it's not gonna last, because it's way too surface level. You need something that's way deep, because no one really cares about how you look at with your fill up at the pool. They're too worried about themselves, right? Like we're all like the main story of our own, the main arc, the main hero of our own story. Like we're too focused on ourselves, right? But we're projecting that everyone is thinking about us and is looking about us all the time. So when we think about taking our shut off at the pool and we try to go to this fitness journey, or it gets hard, and when you sometimes you have to wake up at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. to get it done, and sometimes you have to like sacrifice some of the meals you want sometimes, and it's a little harder than normal. And then you start thinking like, man, why am I even doing this for? Like, I know it's just a shirt off at the pool, bad. Like it's just, yeah, it's just a shirt off at the pool. But what's deeper than that? So like if you're like if your big anchor is actually living, like seeing your kid there, and then you get to make a decision like, if I'm going to stay on this path of like me being unhealthy and like actually not being around to stick longer to make an impact on this kid by me choosing in this moment that I'm not doing what I set out to do, then I'm actively self-sabotaging my resolve versus like using that as a motivator. Like I set out to be better for you, and I'm going to do it. And they never have to even like hear that, but these are the internal battles we fight inside, and those are the pivotal moments that make the hugest difference when you start
Mhm.
understanding what is deeper at the root and source of motivation. And I'm a big believer that, and I can go around and up on this about motivation. And this is also a motivation topic, but I'm a big believer people are going to be sourced in the beginning. It's either going to be sourced from pleasure or pain.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And most people never source the motivation from pleasure. It's most of the time it is from pain. Like something happens, like maybe they get fat shamed too much, maybe they just get sick and tired of it. Some like health scare they have in so here's what I think. I'm a big, in my opinion, that it is breakup. A breakup is a big painful motivator.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that normally starts people off. And it's a good motivator in the beginning, but that's not the stuff you want to like carry on for like the rest of your life. It's going to die off eventually, but you want to find these new motivators that 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 should and anchor you in the terms of pleasure and what you're chasing and not running away from something.
No, that's so so true. Um, it's finding that, the motivator that's inside, like you said, that's underneath all those layers, and that would be like your true motivator. And I think that you're 100% right in what you said, that people get very stuck on those surface level motivators that are out, like, an outside motivator. And when those die off, if they haven't learned to dig in, it's gonna be a struggle. Like I love the breakup example because it is a really good motivator for a lot of people, and they will get in some amazing shape after breakup. They'll meet somebody new and it'll go down the drain because
Mhm,
that motivation is gone.
mhm.
So how do people, what is your best approach to mindset in these situations where, people are so stuck on needing some kind of motivation?
I think it's all going to come down to introspection.
Mhm.
Like, and introspection is like it's open ended, right? Like, what does that even mean? Yeah, that sounds good, but what is it? Introspection is like when you actually take, so I guess I can answer this in a better way to explain it in a different context. Okay. So, because explaining it in this context will actually make a lot of sense because you can actually paint a bigger brush to like understand the deeper connections of all this mindset stuff. But what normally happens when we take on a new journey is we're going to be faced with a lot of different challenges. It's just part. It's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
Now, where like introspection comes in is we are so easily fixated on others, other people, other circumstances, other life events, and a lot of these challenges are going to come up. There's a book by, I forget her name. It's called The Big Leap. I think her name is Gail Hendricks or Brian Green. The book is called The Big Leap. That's all I know. I can get the author for you later. But they talk about these things that are called upper limit problems, right? So anytime we take on a new thing that is outside our comfort zone that we want to do and step up to do, that's going to be life changing. Whether it's a fitness journey, whether it's a new promotion, whether it's like getting our ideal partner, like all these things that are like my dream is coming true. Life or God or the universe, whatever you're, whatever you believe. Whatever power that be, it's going to come in the form of a challenge that's really going to test you to see if you're really deserving or worthy of the goal you said you want to begin with. So I could speak to health and fitness because I see it all the time where people would take this new journey, they'll sign up for coaching and they'll get a coach and I got my meals ready and I got a new gym membership and they never had a gym membership before. They have no clue about how to do this, but they're committed and they have help. But then they get sick,
Yes.
their life gets really, 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 really busy. They get really busy with their family. They get really busy with traveling, or they get like an injury, like nothing a crazy one, like a small injury. Maybe they just strained something, or maybe they need some surgery. Something happens where it's like, whoa, like I don't know, like I did this at the right time, and like, oh, I did this. All my life's in disarray. I'm like, all right. So these are what happens, right? These are just challenges that is testing you to see if you really want the goal you set out to do. And this is going to happen in health and fitness. I see it all the time, but this will happen in new promotions, new jobs, new partners. Like it's challenges are coming to see how you handle it. And the worst thing you can do is just bail out because like it happens and it's not going to stop happening. Like it happens to me. It's just how you roll with the punches. So introspection, and the way I define it, is instead of looking and casting blame onto other circumstances, which by the way, you're valid in what you say. Like I stopped working out because I got busy with work, I got busy with family, I got sick. Like all those are very, very, very valid. Like no one's saying like you're making excuses. They're very valid excuses. But introspection is where you stop pointing blame. Like I gave up, or I stopped because of that, and start looking inward into yourself and finding out why is it that you want to give up? Why is it that you're feeling like this isn't for you? Why are you feeling like this isn't something that you can do despite X going on? So introspection is more about taking what I call radical responsibility. Because that's the only time that we actually grow is we take those fingers that we're pointing out into the world, like I'm overweight because of this, or what Sally did to me in third grade, and she put gum in my hair, and like my life's been messed ever since. Whatever story we're writing, which are valid stories, but you want to start putting those thumbs inward and like really find out like where you get responsibility. And I'm a big believer that no matter the circumstances, and I know this is going to be a bold claim, but no matter the circumstances, I believe you could always find a path back to yourself. You are the one to blame at some level. You had an opportunity to change directions. You had a decision to make at some point that wouldn't have led you into this predicament in the first place. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to go there. But I think that's where people need to go in order for them to take that responsibility. Because from there, that's kind of where you kind of find yourself at a weak moment, but that's also where you find your power. And that's how you can make the changes to grow and learn about why is it that you are feeling the way you're feeling. What are these self-sabotaging things that are happening in the moment? And then how do you navigate through this? So I could talk more about this, but just to answer your question, to circle back on motivate, like how to like, it was a motivate question. You think about it in the terms of why do I think I need motivation in the first place? That's probably a bigger question. Like, how do I like what questions I ask to help to find motivation? Like my question, like, why do you even need motivation? I don't think that we do a lot of the things that we do because we're motivated. Like I would say, like a handful of times, the gym workouts that I go to, I never go because I'm motivated to go. Like half of them, if not maybe 80%, like I don't really feel like going. I just go because that's what I told myself I'm gonna. That's because I'm supposed to go. Like that's discipline. Like why do you go to work every day? You probably don't want to go to work every day, but you go to work because that's your commitment. That's your discipline. Why do you raise the kids the way you do? Because that's your discipline. Why do you feed yourself? And why do we drink enough water? Like you don't want to do these things. We're disciplined to do them, right? So I think we put fitness in this bucket of like we need motivation. Like you don't. really need motivation. Maybe sometimes, I think it's sometimes, there's sometimes I like to get motivated to go, but most of the time it's just like I'm doing what I set out to do because that is the plan that I follow. Um, and the deeper question is around it is learning why you need motive, like where these things come from. So like introspection is like asking the deeper questions around what's internally there for a person, what's internally there for someone that wants to make a change, like why you want it, and then what you need to sacrifice to get to it.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. And I love your phrase of radical responsibility. I absolutely love that. Um, I have my own phrase about taking responsibility for our nutrition, and it's so true because like you said, we always have a choice. Every single day we have a choice of what we do. I mean, if you don't like your job, you honestly have the choice to get up and walk out. If you're not happy in your relationship, you have the choice to get up and leave. Like, is it hard? Yeah, those things are hard. Is fitness hard? Yes. But what is the cost of not doing it? And the cost of not doing it, I mean, look at all of the elderly home centers we have. I don't want to live there. I'm not going to live there. And so I make that choice every single day to take care of my body because I only get one. And I think that's looking at that big picture is maybe where people are struggling too. And instead they see fitness as, a tool to get their body to go from, point A to point B, or they're using it as a tool to remove um, the weight so that they can fit in a wedding dress or go on a vacation or whatever. And then they gain it all back. And it just makes a giant circle because they haven't done, like you've said, and done that introspection to see why they actually want to accomplish something.
What's funny too is like the way at least these first world countries are in, like we're willing to do like a lot of very invasive things to lose weight.
Mhm.
Like to go through surgery, people are willing to do put like sleeves on their stomach to lose weight. People are willing to, like do a lot of like new like I know there's a lot of I don't know exactly what they're called, but I know like the main Ozempic, like the weight loss pills that are really working effectively. I forget like what kind of medicine they are. Um, People are willing to do like these crazy radical diets. People are willing to like fast for days on end. People are willing to do a lot of extreme measures, except doing the basics around holistic health with nutrition and fitness. It's almost like I don't know where it comes from, but I think it might have more to do with like the disinformation and the misinformation that's represented out there. People are just kind of confused. Um,
Mhm.
but what I've noticed is like people are willing to do stuff that are really hard and unnecessary most of the time,
Oh,
versus doing the that like really helps improve the metabolism, improve the body composition, improve their life energy force, improve their mood and their relationships and their outlook on life and their self-confidence, all these other things that would come from living a holistic, natural, healthy lifestyle. Um, so I wonder, like if people are willing to go to those lengths, is like at what cost? And then I start thinking on the back end of it, like there's something that they are running from.
mm,
I don't know as people, like I haven't had conversations, but I would like if I were to put myself in those shoes, if I were to do something that extreme, I would think I'm running away from something. Maybe I'm running away from being seen as overweight. Maybe I'm running away from not being validated by my friends. Maybe I'm running away. Like I don't know what it would be, but I think I would be running away from someone, especially knowing the stats, knowing that you can gain the weight back versus like chasing something. Instead of chasing something, instead of running away from something, we might be chasing like an idealistic identity that I want to start adopting these new habits with that are aligned with feeling better, feeling good, having more energy, having better hormonal function, having better outlook on life. As a result of that, my weight does drop and my body composition does get better. Just becomes a byproduct of the habits that I have. So I just think it's just a different outlook on the trajectory, this whole path this whole mindset is just how you just look at it. So like instead of saying like the surface level, notice like what's deeper behind it, why we do things the way we do things, what is holding us back. How can we take more responsibility for the things that happen in our lives, and what are we willing to, like, what do we want and what are we willing to give up for it?
Right. Right. No, that's so true. It is just a different mindset, like you said, going from one of those, extreme measures to something that is sustainable that you can practice well indefinitely, because being healthy and being fit really doesn't have a timeline. And I sometimes as a coach get really frustrated by that, because it has taken you 10, 20, or 30 years to get to this weight and to put your body into the poor condition that it's in. Why do you think that we can fix it in 6 weeks? Like, I don't get that. But it's like there's a rush to get to the end, but there isn't an end. If you are doing this for health and you're doing this, you know, so that you can be healthy and strong and stay out of those nursing homes, there isn't an end. You don't stop ever. It becomes part of your identity. Like you said, it's just something that you do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just to touch on that even more, identity is probably going to be like the biggest thing that's really going to change everything for an individual, because really like how we identify is just how like what we identify as is at the root, and
Yeah.
then comes the habits, and then comes the character, then comes the energy that we give off from it. But how we see ourselves is the self-reflection identifying person. So like an example, like I have two examples for this.
Yeah.
um so like women with kids or people with kids, right? I think everyone's probably experienced a time when it was really hard to get their kids to brush their teeth.
Yeah,
To
for
get,
sure.
so it's just a thing. Like it's not like that like natural, like growing up in the archaic days, we probably had like really bad dental hygiene, right? Um, so kids hate it, right? But because we are adults and we were probably like taught to like have good dental hygiene from our parents, we eventually developed that identity that we identify with dental hygiene. But kids don't have that. And they
No.
probably wouldn't have had it unless they were probably taught that at some point, right?
Right.
So that's one example. But there's also people who you probably have met that probably don't identify with good dental hygiene, and it just shows. Um, but that's just those are decisions that we get to make, and a byproduct of that is the result that happens. Maybe they just have like a really messed up, like a teeth situation that's going on, but that's okay. The why around it serves them well. Like it's just like we choose these things. And another example of this is like I was talking about like the the broke person who wins the lottery and the millionaire that goes broke,
Mhm.
right? The broke person that wins the lottery, that there's this thing that anyone can like look up that's called the millionaire's or the lottery winner's curse. When someone who doesn't have any like understanding of like assets or a financial backing or financial, they call it financial literacy, just gets like a ton of money, millionaire overnight, big success story, right? The lottery curse is a lot of these people that have bad habits financially end up the same, if not a lot worse than what they started off with. A lot of people end up in jail or dead, um, that are exposed to that type of overnight financial success, just because they didn't have, and that has a lot more to do with not just the money, but the identity that's surrounded that. You give someone that has bad habits more access to do those bad habits, so they're going to do more of those bad habits versus someone who's a multimillionaire or multi-billionaire. We've heard this story many, many times that they built their success over time, right? Over time, they just built their financial literacy. They know the game. They know like the whole like the business ins and outs, the whole companies and LLCs and tax credits and deductions and all that. But they've also had stories of bad plays where they lost everything. But many times we hear the story of that person that identified as being a millionaire. Well, yeah, they lose everything, but eventually they get it all back, if not more. And that's just another story about identity and like how we identify ourselves with. So, like a big lesson here is, or the big takeaway from anyone who's listening is, how have you ever thought about like who do you identify with? Do you identify of a person being overweight? Do you identify a person who's being unhealthy? Do you identify with someone who is like this fitness person? Like that's just not who I am. And if that is the case, like how do you think that things will show up later in life when you're trying to make these habits? Imagine trying to like do these habits and do these new routines without believing you can actually do them. Eventually, sometime down the line, there's going to be that idea around identity, and learning how to cope with that is a really big way as you push through your 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 newfound transformation. And there's two ways to do it. One, you can power through it with your habits and just showing up daily, and it's going to take about 6 months. You really reframe the habit, like doing it daily. That's the thing with the way the subconscious mind works. Repetition, repetition, repetition. You do something long enough, it becomes your habit, it becomes more your character. Eventually it becomes your identity. And then you get to a place where you feel weird if you just don't work out. Like, I don't know if you, I'm pretty sure you feel like that. I feel like that. Like if I don't work out like long enough, I start feeling, oh, I just can't do this. Like, this is not who I am. But that's one way to do it. You just power through it with like action after action after action, but there is a fall off rate that you have to be aware of. The other thing that you can do, that I'm a big fan of, is going deep internally and working with the subconscious mind and understanding like deep within the mindset of your subconscious, of understanding like the way things operate and how you operate, and the introspection work that I talked about. And that's going to come with a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling, and finding the right prompts to find the breakthroughs that you need to start changing your identity as you do these habits. Because that in itself, I think, is a huge, huge, huge breakthrough when you can change your internal belief system. Because once you change that, then the external world changes as well. And that in itself, I believe, is humanely life changing. I wouldn't say it's easier, but it is another path. And I would recommend that path over like, because I think the ratio of failure is a little too high just trying to power through it just with sheer action alone.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. As far as changing your mindset, changing your identity, do you think that how you speak to yourself, because we all have like this internal person in our head that talks all the time, all day long. But do you think the things that we allow ourselves to say to ourselves plays a role in how we perceive ourselves?
100%. Yeah. The little voice is
Yes,
the subconscious mind.
right.
And if you notice yourself having like a lot of negative self chatter, if you could see yourself comparing, like I actually think I wrote like a video on this. I can share it with your people if you like. But like the negative self chatter, the internal dialogue that you have with yourself, there stems from a lot of the negative thinking that will show up in the action. And a lot of people don't just is the subconscious mind. Like we're like making like 5 to 10% of the decisions daily. Like a lot of it's like just running autonomics. Everything in the subconscious mind, like 90-95% is debatable. That's what like your stomach is doing. The stomaching, your liver is livering, it's controlling your heartbeat, it's controlling your metabolism, it's controlling all these little processes. But what also lives there is like your thoughts, your internal belief systems, your memories, your dreams, all that stuff lives there. And what we're conscious of is like about like 5 to 10% of the things that we actually like, like we said we're gonna do it and we go do it. But you and I know like there's so many times we just go on autopilot, like when we drive and we just like plug in a map and we're just thinking. And like we're not really, this is one example like that is like majority of our day. Like we are just making these autonomic decisions without even realizing it. So a way to self-reflect on the really time with yourself in the introspection area And that's going to come with like sitting with yourself. And if you have like some people, what I come to find, that's not, it's like new to this mindset where they don't want to do it. They're like, oh, like I don't want sit with what's going to come up, like I don't want to like deal with my emotions and my memories and all the skeletons I have in my closet. Like that's way in the past. Like I don't want to confront those, but people don't realize that that's all in your subconscious mind. It's affecting you to this day, 100%. It's how you're showing up in your relationships. It's how you're showing up for yourself. It's how you're showing up in your fitness. It's a bit whatever your fitness is or your life is or your work, like all that is a byproduct of where your subconscious mind is. And to change any of that, we can't do without working on the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is going to take a lot of work, but it's not direct like we think it is with the conscious mind. It's more like indirect. And if you understand the subconscious mind, there's ways to reframe and reprogram over time. And the biggest tool that I can give you to changing the subconscious mind is going to be repetition. If you constantly find yourself saying negative things about yourself, it's going to take a lot more effort to reframe and alchemize into positive things. But I think the best thing you can do is being more proactive. And that's step number one I normally give my clients is how do we create more proactive than reactivities in their life, in their life. And if you're going to be reactive during the day, at least we can be proactive in the morning or at night, whenever time you have to spend time journaling, specifically with prompts to help you learn how to talk to yourself in a more positive way. Like say like actually thinking about you in a high self, like I love my, like prompts like I love myself, I am worthy of my goals, I believe in myself. And just saying that back to back to back to back is enough to start changing the dialogue over time. The thing about this is not overnight, but over time it will happen. And when you start noticing these things that's changing in terms of your self-love, your self-worth, your identity of like what you actually believe you're worthy of, that you can receive, that's when you start getting out of your own way. And I think that's also like an endless journey because I think we all have these things and it takes a long time to get through them. But once you get through them in any area, whether it be fitness, I know this is like a big thing help my clients, but it could be also with finances. Like this is the exact, like if you have trouble with finances, this could be the exact same thing, but instead of fitness, it's finances or relationships. If this could be the exact same thing or relationships, like a big thing with relationships is if you notice you have common traits that you're attracting toxic person after toxic person after toxic person, and you're thinking like, oh, there's no good men out there. Like they're all toxic. Like I would argue maybe it's not that there's no good men out there because there are. It just might be you, and you might just be attracting these men. There's in you that you have to fix and you have to heal before you can attract the man that you actually want. And that's what the radical responsibility tends to be, because I mean it's really common. So when it comes to health and fitness, it's like how do you start learning to deal with some of these negative inner turmoil to alchemize that, because once you start alchemizing that, then the whole health and fitness journey just becomes a byproduct of what you believe yourself to be. It becomes easier and becomes something you do, something more secondhand, something you just show up to do. And then and I don't know exact, because I have these clients that I've taken on that just effed off for like almost like 3 months to 6 months, and I'm like, dude, like why are you paying me if you're not gonna? But but I don't know what it was, but at some point they just had a humongous breakthrough and they just changed after like weeks and weeks and weeks of me having the same conversation I'm having with you now about like how to change that inner dialogue. And once they change, like their entire life changes, their habits change, their business changes, they make more money, they have better relationships, and their physique starts to change on what they want.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that is a super common situation that happens. I think that, like you said, a light bulb has to go off, and maybe it is just us saying the same thing every week. Like, we're not going to progress anything, we're not going to do anything until you have mastered this step. And I think that they just have to come to that realization that, oh my God, I'm the one holding myself back. So it's really awesome when that they do have that kind of breakthrough moment, because then, like you said, yes, then they start seeing really great progress, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've taken up quite a bit of your time today, TC. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we didn't go over? We have a lot of ladies watching, so if you have any questions, last minute here for TC, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll make sure they get answered.
I can talk about this like literally all day. It's like it's one of my, I'm passionate about health and fitness, but I'm really passionate about like this whole mindset stuff. And like I liked, because I used to use the words like spirituality. I used to
Mhm.
use the words like I used to use words like I guess spirituality and like the ethos and like the things that are like, like, and I feel like it just became too woo-woo from people, because I think when people think spirituality, they think of like gods and ascensions and religion, and I'm not talking about that. I'm really talking about what I'm talking about here, like self-reflection, learning about your shadow and your shadow work and what makes you unique and what makes you great. And what also makes you great, there also might be some things that are like things you don't like about yourself. And that's the shadow. Like that's like the darker parts, but also makes us amazing. And we want to highlight these. But we also have to highlight the things that are negative and shine light on them, because we have to love ourselves as a whole. And that's not self-love if you're like resisting a part of yourself. And I'm a big believer you can't have you can't have a light without a shadow,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So like, maybe like an example of a shadow for someone, like maybe someone is super successful and they just chase success, but maybe they carry something from their childhood. Maybe they were trying to appease their father or their parents from when they were 3, and they just made that decision that got rooted in their subconscious mind that just carried on throughout their life. Now they're super, and they don't really realize it. And
Mhm.
that's an example like running away from something. But this is deeper because they might not even understand it yet. They might not be aware of it. But I think like the actuality of like fulfilling like the deepest love you have for yourself and allowing like even a partner to come in to express that love is when you start doing this inner work and realizing like it's not like about being perfect or being this idea, but like loving all parts of yourself, even the parts that you resist the most, that you
Mm.
could start making some actual changes in terms of your business and what you really want. If you don't, we're blocks that we don't really know how to like overcome. But it starts with those introspection ideas around working on ourselves, working with the mindset, working with things that we don't really appreciate about ourselves. And I know this is really common in the fitness space, like I have women clients and like, the nitpicking. I guess I nitpick too, but like, like my legs don't look as good, or like I have a little bit of fat here, I have like that on my arms, or we're just nitpicking. But those are the things that we need to show. Those are the things that need the most love.
Right.
In
No.
order to accept where we are, to avoid the self-sabotage that will come later, to move into this new identity that we're becoming. So like instead of like nitpicking and like what we don't like about ourselves and our specific to our bodies, but moving into a place where we start showing love about ourselves. It might not even start like I love this part of it, because maybe we might feel like we're lying if we have this like flabby arm and then like I love my flabby arm. Maybe that's too extreme to like move into right away. But maybe we could start with saying like I'm not perfect. I'm not I'm not totally 100%.
No, thank you. I think this has been super valuable. We had a couple times where connection got bad, but it didn't drop, so I'm thankful for that. We have quite a few ladies watching, but I didn't see any questions come through. We had a lot of hearts and a lot of likes, so that's always encouraging. It means they are appreciating the value brought today. So thank you for your time. If someone wanted to talk to you more about mindset, TC, where could they get a hold of you?
You can catch me on my Instagram form with TC.
Okay. On Instagram?
Then I also met, yeah. Then I also mentioned I'll relay a video to you
Oh, okay.
that goes over all this mindset stuff, the inner workings of shadow work and how to overcome self-sabotage and the inner workings of the subconscious mind and how we can start alchemizing more into like the self-love approach as we take on our journey. It's a really, really awesome video. I think will be really helpful for this topic alone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I can put it with this training so it stays together. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your night. If you have additional questions, once the live is ended, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I can always get back to you at a different time. All right.
Perfect.
A beautiful evening.